Oh, good as that, eh? That's why you need CW, you see. CQDX? CQDX? Okay, good. Good afternoon. My name's Ray, G4FON, and I'm going to try and give you some insight into moving away from the 599TU and perhaps a little bit of conversational Morse code. I'm having a bit of trouble with this technology, but hopefully it'll work. No, it won't. Yep. So that's my plan, give you an idea how you might actually get to the point where you can use your Morse code skills well enough to talk to other folks in a more meaningful way than 599TU. So how many of you got 599TU encoded on your Morse key and your call sign as well? I'm sure I have, or I did in one time in my life. And I did for a long time. So we're going to move away from that. And how many times have you heard that whooshing noise as you work another station, and instead of sending back 599 and whatever the serial number is, or TU, they say, "Hi Ray, how you doing?" And you go, whoosh, straight over your head. Yep, you've had that one as well. So completely throws you as when it first happens, but if you can converse in Morse code, you can take that in your stride and away you go. So, as I say, the answer is yes, you're at the right talk. A little bit about me. I took my REE when I was a wee small lad in the 1970s. And my parents thought it would be, they had no interest in amateur radio at all. This was a strange thing that their son was doing. But he announced that he wanted to set up G3HSC rhythm course, method, whatever you call it. Morse LPs, as they were in those days. They came as a pack of 3. They bought them for me as a Christmas present. You've still got them, my word. Well, I have to tell you, by the time the new year came, I'd A, partly worn them out, and B, I'd completely learned all the 5-letter code groups in it, and after which point they were pretty much, as far as I was concerned, useless. So it took me a while to get going, and it wasn't until I enrolled with a gentleman called Colin G3X, who I'm afraid is now silent key, who worked at Cove radio station in Farnborough, and he taught Morse code. I went off to Southampton, and as probably some of you did as well, and got my call sign, G4FON. And a bit ironic, really, FON, phone, for a CW operator, but there you go. I set up my first HF station, but I was doing a lot with voice. And then I moved out to America in the 1980s, and I spent a lot of time on 2-meter squawk boxes as I commuted in and out of Chicago, but doing no more. Returned to the UK in the end of the 80s and started a family, and that has a crushing effect on amateur radio, let me tell you, and I'm sure you all know. But it didn't keep me down forever, and around the turn of the millennium, I decided that I wanted to get back into Morse code again, into amateur radio again, and living as I did then in the centre of Oxford, QRP operation struck a chord, so I wasn't going to wipe out everybody's television sets and other items around. So I thought about it, and I figured that the only way I was going to do anything halfway useful with QRP was to learn Morse code. And my Morse by this time had never really got much above 12 words a minute and was down very much in the doldrums, and it was time to find ways of improving it and going on to where I wanted to be. So I searched the web, and I found an article by a gentleman called Dave Finley, N1IRZ, who talked about the work of a German psychologist called Ludwig Koch, I think that's how you pronounce the name, Koch, one of those two. Sorry? Koch. That's the nearest you get to my German-speaking XYL. So he had done some work in the 1930s on teaching people Morse code, and he had some interesting things to say. And I took what he said, and I built some software to teach myself, to get myself back up to speed again. And I found it very successful. And so having got where I wanted to be, I released it out to the great unwashed, and you can find it on my website to this day, although there's going to be a new version going up as a result of the talk we're giving today. I called it QSL cardware, and every first time you run it, it pops up a request for a QSL card. And if anybody you've seen this, you probably have. And it's got its DXCC and more. I get QSL cards even now every week. A couple of QSL cards drop through the letterbox. So it's been great. It was initially the idea was to be a geography lesson for my kids. So we would work out where these places were. We had a big map on the wall, and we would plot where the QSL cards came from. But I've stopped it in the latest version. I've got enough QSL cards to go through from now to ever, I think. So, as a result of writing the software and making it available, I've had all sorts of conversations with people about their experiences of learning Morse code and what's good for them, what's bad for them. And that's led to me to refine the software to a certain extent and also formulate what I think is a way that you would go about learning Morse code. And I realized, small plug for an organization, in 2006 I was invited to join FOC, First Class CW Operators Club, which is a group of people who sit on 25 kilohertz up from the bottom of the band and rag chew. And I was invited to join in 2006, which is the bottom of the sunspot cycle, roughly where we are today. And the challenge of the membership is you have to get 5 sponsors, and 2 of them have to be outside of the continent you live in. And I realized pretty quickly that QRP wasn't going to make it. So I went up to 100 watts and more and joined. I became a member in November 1976. It's a great club. It's good fun. It's a challenge for you to look to if you want to get through to the conversational side of things. Come, sit on the band. Somebody will find you. They'll invite you to join, and I highly recommend it. So, having given a little bit of background, let's talk about the work of Ludovic Kok. And he enlightened me more than anything else as to why my quest for the 12 words a minute Morse test to get G4FON was such a struggle. And it also explained why I, and probably many other people, hit this magic plateau at about 10 words a minute. What it transpires is that I, and probably most of you in this room, actually learned Morse code twice. The first time, Kok worked out that you build a lookup table in your brain. You know that did R equals A and da did it equals B, etc., etc., etc. And every time a Morse letter is thrown at you at 5 words a minute, you dissect it into its dots and dashes. And then you whiz down the lookup table until you work out what those dots and dashes mean. The result of that is, as you wind the speed up and up and up, you start to sweat, quite honestly, and it becomes increasingly difficult. And then you hit this plateau, this magic plateau everybody talks about. And at around 10 words a minute, your brain finally decides it can no longer use this lookup table. And what it's going to do instead is listen to the actual sound of each letter and take that sound and build it into a Morse. So what you're now teaching yourself to do, rather than look up the dots and dashes, is hear the sound and from that work out what the Morse letter is. And it's that you're starting to work on. And that goes from about 10 to 12 words a minute up until as fast as you can go. And there's I know one German guy who's a member of FOC who can do 200 words a minute. Frightening or what? But HSC is as a German club, like to do that. So that's the transition across the plateau that we all talk about. So Kok had this ingenious solution to learning Morse code, and that was forget about this 5 words a minute. And I'm sorry to those people who've bought the RSGB's book on how to learn Morse code, which has a DVD in the back running at 5 and 10 words a minute, if my memory serves me correctly. Forget about that. Start where you mean to finish. Start at the beginning. Start, in my case, at 25 words a minute. If you think it's hard to learn Morse code at 25 words a minute, it's actually no harder to learn it there than it is to learn it at 5 words a minute. And then work your way up until you get to 25, because you're going to have as much trouble. And his technique was to start off with 2 characters. Initially, he suggested K and M, K being da-di-da and M being da-da. So what you're doing is differentiating between the dot in the middle of the 2. So your brain is starting to focus on that. And people do find that hard. I exchanged emails with somebody who said, your software's not working. It's only sending M's. And I said, that's interesting. Are you sure? Oh, yes, yes. Send me a recording, because there's a facility to record with the software. And it was sending K's and M's. He just simply couldn't get his brain around hearing it. But you can do. And once you get to that point, and you've recognized the difference between K and M, and it's all about practice, and how much practice you're prepared to put in is what's necessary. So once you've got K and M going, you add another character. And the next one in Koch's recommendation and my software as well is the letter R, which is obviously K backwards. So you're now doing K, M, and R. Now, there's a beauty to this. You continue, should I say, until you've done all the 40 characters in my trainer, and if you want to define more characters of your own, you may be more than that. But the minimum I do is basically A to Z, 0 to 9, and a few punctuation marks as well. So the beauty of the approach is that any given time, you're actually only learning 1 new character. All the others are being forced into your brain, and you're building up this understanding of what's going on, but adding 1 new character. So you're only going to struggle with 1, and all the others should come to you naturally. And that's the way that he aimed it to be. So an interesting approach, and as I say, one that has worked for me, and countless people around the world have taken use of the software. He published his work before the dawn of the computer age, and in those days it was pretty hard to do what he's describing now. But now, with modern computers, it's pretty trivial, and that's what formed the basis of my training software. So that's an idea about how it seems to work for most people to actually learn software at a high speed. But there's a few other things that you need to think about. Well, sorry, I got ahead of myself. His work has been validated by modern medical research. People have put poor unsuspecting radio amateurs into MRI scanners and sent Morse code at them to see what parts of their brains flash. And what they've come to find out is above the plateau, above the 10, 12 words a minute, wherever your plateau is, your brain treats it like another language. So to your brain, it is a language, and just like English, French, German, or whatever. So the question you would ask yourself, if you're in any doubt about whether Mr. Koch had the right ideas or not, is who taught you to speak English by speaking to you very slowly? And the answer is nobody. You were just talked at a constant speed, and after time you simulated it, and away you went. So I think it has a pretty good validation. And I think, and lots of other people, as I say, this isn't just me, this is feedback from the software, lots of people believe me that this is the way to achieve proficiency at Morse code. But the talk of this lecture is conversational Morse code, not just being able to read 599TU. And in order to do that, you need to think about what it is that you are trying to achieve as you learn this Morse code. And if you want to do it conversationally, you need to recognize the individual Morse characters. You need to assemble them into words, and ultimately you need to assemble those words into sentences as people speak to you. So you're doing this all in your head as you sit there. There's no writing it down, nothing like that at all. So with that as your goal in mind, and as I say, as your skills improve, you'll learn actually to recognize whole words. I'm sure most people recognize their call sign if it's sent to them. It's just another word as far as your brain is concerned, and it's the same thing happens with that. So if you start writing down the Morse code as you receive it off the computer, you're teaching yourself the wrong thing. You're teaching yourself how to flex your arm muscles in order to write. You're not teaching yourself to assemble those letters in your head. And that's what you're aiming to do. So, my view, don't write anything down. Typing it into a computer so you can check your accuracy later, and Koch, as I say, wanted 90%, so you could do something to check to see whether your accuracy has hit that level, is equally counterproductive, because what you're now teaching yourself to do is to sit there and type the words as they come in. You'll find that you don't actually assimilate anything. And it was very interesting to me. I realized that the one thing I can't do very well in QSOs, and the one thing I have to write down to this day is call signs. I never can remember the other station's call sign. I can chat to them, but I never remember their call sign. And then one day it dawned on me why. I do a lot of contesting. When I'm contesting, what I type into the computer is the call sign. I don't register it particularly. I don't care what it is. I just type it into the computer. And that was a reaction I was still having when I was trying to do conversational Morse code, to the extent I was not able to copy call signs. So keep away from typing or doing anything else like that. And again, it's long been suggested by people that sitting and immersing yourself in a foreign language is the way to learn it. As some of you may know, I live half my life in Germany these days, and I've tried quite hard to talk to people in German, pidgin German that it is, but every time they realize I've got a British accent, they switch to English almost immediately, and it's a challenge. But consider what that means, learning Morse code. My software, which I say is freely available, and I've got a number of memory sticks sitting at the back, which I'll talk a bit more about later on, allows you to take common words. There's 2 files of common words. Once you've learned all the 40 characters, a new part of the repertoire comes on board, and you get common words which you can sit down and listen to. And again, build them up in your head. Don't try and write them down. Don't do anything like that, because you are not developing the reflexes that you want. If you want to review them again, you can record them. You can record anything that the software is sending out. And I'll talk a little bit more about recording when I go through the software later on in the game. Once you become proficient at assembling your Morse letters into words, if you're going on for a conversation, you need to start looking at sentences. And I don't have any way of doing sentences built into the software, but I've got an idea, and which lots of people have tried and felt good about with learning the Morse code. How many of you listen to audiobooks? I know that I do. I'm an avid listener of them, and I enjoy them as I travel around. Have you considered listening to them rather than in English, in Morse code, as a way of picking up conversational Morse code? If you go to Gutenbergorg, they've got I think they said 54,000 uncopyrighted books sitting on that website, all as text files. You can pull those down, you can download them, and I'll show you a little later on how you can load a text file into the software and generate yourself an audio book. In fact, the memory stick I was talking about has got a few on there, just so you can figure out what you might wish to listen to and get some idea how good it is to you. Having created the MP3 file from the audiobook using the software, put it on an iPod or any other MP3 player and play it. To begin with, you're not going to actually get much of the book probably, but you can dip in and out of the book. But if you have it running sort of as you go around your daily chores, then your brain is assimilating that Morse code. It's listening there. Its subconscious part of it is still working at it, trying to understand what it is, the same way that if you're walking down the street, as I do in Heidelberg, you hear these people talking in German, and your brain picks up little bits of it, and more of it, it's able to recognize it. So that is an approach to doing that. And suddenly, and you'll have to take a leap of faith here to do it, you find it's all effortless. You can take words down, you can take sentences down. And before you know it, you're able to receive Morse code at least. Having learned to receive, or around the same time you're learning to receive, you need to be able to send. You need to be able to send, to chat to people, you need to be able to send sentences again. And you need to be able to send for your conversational skills. You need to be able to break sentences down into words down into the letters that constitute the word, and you need to be able to send them all out one after the other to the poor soul at the other end of the QSO. As an aside, to paddle or not to paddle? Do you use a straight Morse key? Do you learn on that? Or do you go straight for a set of paddles? And my thoughts, and I think most people's this day and age, are there's no point in learning to use a straight key. You might as well just go straight for paddles and gain the skills doing that. But if you've got older radios without any keyer in it, of course you might consider using paddles. And there's a whole group in FOC and groups around as well who enjoy using the old mechanical bug keys. Frankly, I can't get on with them at all, and it's just an awful noise comes out of the transmitter. But for those who like them, away you go. Now, my view, and one you might think about, is if you want to actually use your paddles and you want to actually learn the skill of sending, the best thing to do is to connect the paddles to the radio and turn off the transmitter or the break-in and use the radio as your training machine, so just the side tone from the radio. The point being that every Morse keyer that you'll ever find, buy, or whatever has a slightly different quirk to it. They all do slightly different strange things, and what you want to do is get used to the quirks of your particular machine, so when you plug it in and actually go on air to talk to somebody, it doesn't do things that you weren't expecting. Because, as I say, the radio is ultimately how you're going to communicate. Another aside on paddles, it's known as iambic keying when you have squeeze paddles, and I expect most people know this, but I'll just throw it in for the heck of it. There are two modes of iambic A and iambic B, and it has to do with dot memory at the end of the letters. And I use B, but it comes down to whatever you like to do. There are people who will argue day in, day out as to which one is the better mode. But I can immediately tell which mode the keyer is in by sending my call sign. And if I send out G4FON and the side tone comes back G4UON, well, I know I'm on an A keyer, and I dive into the menu of the radio in order to set it to B keying, because the dot memory isn't there to remember the last dot in the F, so it gives you a U instead. Just something that people might not be aware of, but I thought I'd carry on. So my sending software, my Morse trainer now, the new version that you've got that will come out today, I've added a sending trainer to it to help people get over this barrier of sending. And again, you do it from the side tone from your radio. You connect that to the PC sound card. And then there's a little words button. You choose a block of words and wait for the software to leap into life. And what the software does is that the voice synthesizer inside the software speaks a word to you. So you don't see it written down. It comes into your brain in a similar way that it would do if you were actually thinking what you might be saying to somebody. It speaks the words to you, and you have to send it back before it'll move on. That way you don't see the word written down, you don't have any visual clues as to how to do it, and it's going to be pretty much as it would be in a real QSO situation. You can set up how many times you want to retry. And if you make a real mess of it on the window, it'll give you a string of dots and dashes showing you what you did, and you can try and work out what you should have done. You can ask it to resend the word, you can ask it to move on because you're bored with that word and you've tried so many times. But it's a way of learning how to transmit and to get positive feedback, well, hopefully positive feedback on how you're getting on with the Morse code. So a little bit of a cook's tour of the software. If you've seen it before, it's realigned itself a little bit, and I was hoping that there was a laser pointer here, but there isn't, so we might have a trouble. I'm not even sure this script monitor's in focus, but initially when you fire it up, you've got a characters number here. This one's currently 39. It starts off with 2 characters, which are K and M. Click on the start key, it'll start sending them to you. Alternatively, the thing about it is, I also worked out is that if you send 5-letter code groups, which is what used to be the absolute de facto standard of teaching Morse code, your brain says, 4 letters until I get a break, 3 letters till I get a break, 2 letters till I get a break. Break, think about it. Right, got it, and moves on. You don't want it to do that. You don't want your brain to be looking for opportunities to do anything other than listen to the sound and convert it into letters. So it generates random length groups of code. You can set the pitch, you can set your speed. There's an effective speed operator, which if you're really struggling, you can set the effective speed to say 20 words a minute. So it sends the characters at 25, but gives you a longer break. Personally, I don't recommend it, but it's in there because people have found it to be useful. You can mess around with the signal when you really want to do some training. You can adjust the signal strength. You can make it sound like a straight key at the other end. You can change the weighting on it. You can add some QRM, so it'll send a couple of bits of CW in the background. It'll chirp. Speed dither I found to be interesting, and pitch dither. You don't really want to learn just to be able to hear the Morse code at exactly 25 words a minute and exactly 650 hertz, or whatever you set up as the pitch up here. So it'll change the speed by 4 or 5 words a minute, either faster or slower, so that you get used to that idea. And it'll move the pitch up and down so that your brain isn't just locked into one. Because if you listen to somebody speaking to you, I mean, I've got a male voice, so I've got a fairly low pitch, but a female will speak a higher pitch, and you need to be able to do both of those. And whilst in a situation where you've got control over listening to the other station, you can set the pitch. But it's not always the case, particularly if you decide to contest or something like that. People will come back to you at different pitches. You can have chirp, which makes it sound like, I don't know, a Cold War Russian station, shall we say, to be polite. You click the start button, you get the 2 characters. It gives you a countdown initially in red and then a session time. And you can set the session time to be however long you like. 5 minutes is the default, and it sits there and churns quietly away, sending you Morse, which you listen to and say to yourself, R, K, R, M, K, or whatever. In your brain, do it. Don't write it down, because you go in the wrong direction if you write it down. You honestly are. Koch, as I say, wanted you to add another letter after you got to 90%. 90% accuracy, should I say, with the ones you've got. You know when you've got it wrong. You know when it's time to move on once you start really practicing. There's no real reason to do any writing down. When you get to the 40 characters, you get the option to send text files, words, and QSOs if you want to. If you want to practice QSOs. And this is it running now, sending at 25 words a minute, and that's the words. So the words are put out after they've sent. They're not put out before you send them, so you can't see what it's sending to you. And you can adjust the delay if you like. It's got no delay at the moment, so it'll send it right at the end. You can set it 2 or 3 behind if you want to, and it'll keep the words. So It's a positive reinforcement rather than a help to understand what it is that you're receiving. Here's the sending side of things. Because you're putting sound into the card, you need to be able to check that it's okay. So it gives you a waveform, and ideally you want the amplitude a little bit higher than that, but at that sort of level. It gives you an FFT, just so you know what the pitch is, so I can calculate how to decode the Morse. Set your practice speed to 25 words a minute. In this case, how many attempts you want to go before you give up and move on to automatically to the next letter. Click on the words button, choose a words file, and it'll speak to you. When it speaks to you, you send the word to it. And as you send the word, it'll move on to another one. You can use it without clicking on the words button if you want to, and you just send to it. It'll monitor what you sent and put it up there as text. So you have two options. You can either have it speak words to you, and then you send them back, or you can just simply send words at it, and it will decode them for you. I don't recommend putting it on the HF bands. It's not bulletproof Morse code decoder. It's just designed particularly for this operation. There's a help. Tells you a little bit about it. Depending upon whether you're on the sending train or the receiving train, and I should have pointed out there's a tab up here that changes between the sending and the receiving. It'll give you context-sensitive help in this window here, telling you what it's all about. There's another button here about MP3 recording, and a little bit about that. The problem with MP3 is that you're required to make royalty payments for it. And you have to, if you use it in the software, you are supposed to pay the MPEG-LA organization royalty.
They've expired.
Have they expired?
They've expired now, yes. In Europe, at least, the patents have expired.
That's interesting. I hadn't realized that. Anyway, my way around that was to give you all the instructions you need to go and find the DLL that's necessary to make it work. And if you drag the DLL on top of the window, it'll copy it into the right place in the software for you so that you can now carry on and use it, and you can make MP3 recordings. Once you can make MP3 recordings, there's a menu item called Record Text File. And there's a link here, which if you click on it, it'll take you to the Gutenberg site where you can go and find yourself a file. Once you've found a file, you may need to top and tail it with an editor. Once you've done that, you drag it on top of the here or use the file button to open the window and search for the file that you want to do. And it'll churn through and it'll give you a progress bar. It's not fast. It'll take as much CPU as it can get, but it's still not a particularly fast process encoding Morse code. But once you've got there, you've now got a file that you can put in and play on your MP3 player. So that's really my thoughts, distillations on learning how to do conversational Morse code. I'd like to sum up what I had to say. First is to start where you intend to end up. If you want to be using 25 words a minute, start at 25 words a minute. Don't do anything like start at 12 and work your way up. It's just not worth it. It really is not worth it. Your brain is perfectly capable of doing 25 words a minute. Importantly, learn the sounds, don't learn the elements. Not interested in dots and dashes, you're interested in di-da and the noise that it makes, not the elements that constitute it. Avoid writing things down. Don't try and write down the code because you're teaching yourself the wrong skills. Say it in your head, speak it out loud, do whatever you like. I mean, you know, my wife already knows I'm a raving lunatic. What's the point of not proving that by saying this? As you're learning, you'll instinctively know when you're good enough to move on to a new character. Don't test yourself in any particular way. Just when you feel you've got it right, you move on and do that. Once you've got the characters sorted out, got them down pat, move on to the words option. There's two files. One is 100 words, common words, and there's 1,000 common words. Start off with the hundreds if you like, then go on to the thousands, or jump in the deep end. You can even, in the setup for the software, if you want to, you can filter out words that only start with the the letter W or the letter A or whatever, so you can get a subset of the words that you want to practice with. But the more you've got, the more the merrier, the more practice you're going to get. I mean, teaching yourself to learn just and then just the, and then just to or whatever is not really going to help you, because they're going to come at you in ways that you're not expecting. And it's better to just do it randomly. And I think use audiobooks as a way of listening to complete sentences. Or if you've got something else that you want to do, record it as a file and go after building up the complete sentences in your head. So it's letters to words, words to sentences. It is the way I have found that it works. And listen to it in the background. Your brain is an amazing thing. I don't know how it works. I've never tried to even fathom it out at all. But listen to it in the background, and it'll be working for you to help you learn this new skill and hone your receiving skills. Start learning to send using the key in your radio. Avoid sending written text if you can. And above all, if there's one thing I would say to you about mastering any sort of Morse code, it's practice, practice, practice. Do it daily, do it as regularly as you possibly can. Don't just sort of try and do it once a week on Sunday afternoon. It's going to take you a lot longer to do than it is by doing day by day. A little bit on FOC, First Class CWO Operators Club. It's a club by invitation only. There's about 500 members in it. There are 2 or 3 of them I can see in this room. It was formed in 1938, and we recently had a very nice 80th anniversary celebration dinner at Girton College in Cambridge. It's a social club as much as anything else. Socially on the air to chat to people, socially getting together in different parts of the world to get together and actually meet people and make friendships that you hopefully will keep forever. Now, the members can be found 25 kilohertz up from the bottom of most of the HF bands, so 14025, 7025, 3525. And they're always happy to chat. They like talking to people. And if you want to find out more about the club, g4foc.org. I'll tell you about it. So FOC has agreed to help today, and I've got 50 memory sticks to give away with the new software on it and some audiobooks. I'm trying to do a rough estimate in this room. I'm sure I've got a horrible feeling we've got more than 50 people. So Michael over there in the middle has got them. So go see him if you'd like to collect one today. Thanks for your listening, and good luck with your quest to move from 599 TU to conversational Morse. And I look forward to working on the bands. I can be found 25 up. Anybody got any questions? You can download you will be able to very soon have the new software available. The current software doesn't have the sending trainer, and it doesn't have the ability to produce audio files directly. You can still do it. The new software will go up in the next few days when I've got a bit of spare time. And yes, of course you can download it. The audiobooks, you have to go to Gutenberg and pick them up. They're quite large, and I don't have the room to store them on my website or the download capacity to pull them down either. So that's the problem. There was a gentleman at the back. Any more? Sorry?
Just to say, how do you spend the next 2 weeks learning all of this? Save me shouting. Just to say, first of all, thank you very much. I was playing with this on Friday, and now I know a bit more about it and how to use it. But Leicester Radio Society, which I sort of here half representing, are running a Morse assessment workshop on the weekend of the 27th, 28th of this month.
Right.
So anybody keen has got 2 weeks to practice, and We're running the RSGB on behalf of them, Morse assessments. So have a look at g3lrs.org.uk, and if anybody's interested in Morse certificates, Morse assessments, get in touch. So obviously a lot of keen people here.
Okay. There's a couple of questions over there. Oh, everybody's rushing out to get their memory key. This was not the idea. The last 50 out are the people who get the memory sticks.
Yeah. Hello, is this live?
Sorry. Yeah.
My name's Ray, G3X.